So I'm going to set up an Apache MySQL PHP server in Linux Mint, which uses the same repositories as Ubuntu. So if you're using Ubuntu, it should look exactly the same, except you might have a different desktop environment going on. The first thing we need to do is install the web server using our steps. So since I'm using Ubuntu or Mint, I'm going to open a terminal and type in these commands. So sudo apt-get install Apache2 and enter my password. And I haven't already installed it on this computer, so I let it do its thing. Then I need to actually install the database server. That was the web server portion. The database server is called MariaDB, which is just a free non-Oracle version of MySQL made by the same people originally. So I install MariaDB server and MariaDB client. And once this command is finished, I will have a web server, I will have a database server. The last thing I'll need to do is install PHP and then restart the web server, and everything will work that I need. So let's start the database server. And then I'm going to do a secure installation of MySQL. The default password for root should be no password. So since I'm doing a secure installation now, it's going to say, hey, that's a dumb idea. Would you like to give root a password? So I'm going to say yes. And then I need to give it a password and retype it. Then it wants to say that anonymous people aren't allowed to use my database. That sounds good. I don't want people to be able to log into my computer from somewhere else, so I say yes. And then do I want to remove test access to the database? Yes. And then refresh all the privileges? Yes. All done. Just say yes to everything and enter a password when you need to. Then I can install Apache. Sorry, we already have Apache, I mean PHP. So apt-get, install, PHP, and all this other stuff. The PHP MySQL is what's actually going to let the database and PHP talk. So that's also very important at this step. We'll let that go. And then once PHP is installed, all I have to do is restart the web server, and then Apache will realize that PHP is there, and it'll be able to actually run PHP scripts or service PHP scripts on the web server. So now we're ready. I restart the web server. Everything's good to go. Now we already have our server started up, but let's open a MySQL console by typing MySQL, and I want to use the root user because it's the only one that exists already. And then I just gave it a password a couple minutes ago. If you didn't do the secure installation, it won't have a password. You don't need the -p. But if you did put in a password during that secure install, you have to put -p so that you can actually type in the password And okay, so I needed sudo on that, but now I'm into the database, I'm ready to go, and I want to start doing some of the test stuff that we did in class. So I want to see all the databases that exist. So I type show databases, semicolon, and I just have the standard administrative databases that keep MySQL running. I want to create a new database. I'm going to call it Cape Cod because that's what I'm going to need to be able to import the files from the textbook. So now I have a new database. If I try show databases again, now that Cape Cod database is in there, I'm going to use the Cape Cod database and try and look at what tables exist in there. So if I type show tables, no tables. That's because I just created it and I didn't put any tables in. So that makes a lot of sense. So what I'm going to do is go back to Moodle, download the two files. First I need create tables, then I need insert data. And in my standard Linux setup, that just goes to my home folder /downloads. I got a lot of other stuff in here. But those are the two that I need. And so I'm going to open a new terminal window and actually navigate to that downloads folder to make the upload a little bit easier. So I'm going to go to downloads, and now my files will be in there. And again, MySQL, my root user, I'm going to need a password. But then I type the database name I want to load this information into, a little less than sign, and then I type the path to my file. Since I already navigated to the downloads folder, it really is just as easy as typing the file, which starts with DBP for database principles, E14. Okay, I can tab to autofill, and then insert. Nope, I don't want insert, I want to create. So create is what I need now. And so if I hit enter, I need a password, and then I need a database password. But then it's going to process that SQL script, which is creating tables in that database. So when I come back to my database window and type show tables again, now it's got all these tables that are mentioned in the textbook. And so this is a review of what we accomplished in class today, Thursday, October 20th, and we will continue next week.